The profit is so large on that, and I have the statistics that I know that when I'm sitting in those books, I'm always going to be making money. And I won't just be making money, I'll be, like way in the green on those. And so I have those triggers and everything set in that way. I love long tail books.
What's going on, everybody on YouTube and iTunes? Welcome back to the Raiken Profit Show. Today is episode number 16 with my good friend Jim Pickins. Jim Pickins has been selling books on Amazon for over 3 years. He's sold about $600,000 in gross sales of books on Amazon FBA. And we're going to be talking with Jim today about his business, how to source books, how to find books, how to analyze books, and how to get started making money on Amazon selling books. So without further ado, what is going on, Jim? Good to see you, man.
What's going on, Steve? How you doing?
Everything is going really well, man. I'm excited to talk with you, man. I mean, for the people who don't know, Jim is actually the founder of Book Selling 101, which is a course that I've been an affiliate for. I've promoted it for probably about a year now. And I get people asking me all the time, like, what's the best way to get started with books? And there's just so many facets to a book selling business that you literally have probably the best course out there. And it's literally for what you give, it's just an amazing value. So for anyone who's purchased or has heard of Book Selling 101, Jim is the creator. So welcome, man. How's life in the book business, man? What's new with that?
Yeah, books are good. I appreciate that, by the way. It is. And what I think is also good to say is that it's actually not so much only for people looking to sell books, but if you're new to Amazon FBA in general, starting books is, I feel, the best way to go because it's the least amount of money you need to put up front with the most amount of money you can get back for your money. So, and then it teaches you things about sales rank and things like that. And even now when I source, I'm not just going for books. If there's other items I know I can sell, I buy those as well. So, the course is really ideal for the new seller. It's also good for people that have been selling but are having issues with sales. Their sales aren't really where they want them to be and things like that. I appreciate what you said about it. I've sold a lot of copies and I've had a lot of success stories, and I think that's what I'm most proud of.
Awesome. Cool. So at the end of the show, we're going to do a little review of it behind the scenes and go into the course. But for the time being right now, let's really start to smash some of these main. So let me ask you, Jim, for the people who want to get started with selling books, like why would you want to sell books on Amazon? Like what's the opportunity? What's the reason why you chose books over any other product?
So a good thing to note here is that I didn't actually start with books. I actually started with something called retail arbitrage, and that's when you go to stores and you buy things for one price, but you have a phone and an application that tells you that you can sell it for a higher price on Amazon. So I actually started with that, but what I found was that the returns weren't as high. I got into books accidentally by selling my uncle's books. He gave me about 200 books. He just had no reason to have them anymore. I had no money at the time, so I listed them on FBA. Those 200 books, now it is fair to say here that they were kind of out there, like they were kind of strange books. They were very specific topics, so I wouldn't say this is the norm, but we ended up making over $1,500 on those 200 books.
Wow.
So it was kind of an eye-opener as to the potential for books. So that's what kind of got me into this. And then, I started sourcing in all different types of places, and I've done really well.
Yeah, there's a lot of people who they want to get started with books, but they're not sure exactly where to get started. Maybe they don't have, a bunch of their grandparents' books laying around or just books at their own house. What's the best way for a beginner to go out there and start finding books that are profitable?
Right. So obviously I have a course that goes through all of this from A to Z, but for the person that is just listening to this and they want some advice, some tips, I would say the first thing is that books are everywhere. So obviously thrift store is one of the first things that comes to people's minds because it's people's used goods that usually they donate it, so they don't think there's much value in it, or they don't know what to do with it, so they donate it. So thrift stores can be good. Library sales have done very well for me. I can say that I can count the number of sales on one hand that I've gone to that I made less than $2,000. So library sales have always been a big one for me. So I would say for the very beginner, I would start with those two things. And then you can always expand. Like now I don't even do library sales. I don't do anything like that. So the books that I do sell now, it's all from my website and things like that where people contact me. It's relationships that I've built. So, I get books now. When I need books, I can get them on a much larger scale, thousands of pounds, in Gaylords and things like that. So it's kind of progressed through the years.
So when somebody goes to a thrift store for the first time or, maybe a library sale, how are they actually analyzing the books? What's the process? For the people out there who don't understand what the Amazon Seller app is or FBA Scan, how exactly does that work? How do you analyze a book? You go to a bookstore and there's hundreds and thousands of books. What's your process for getting there and then starting to determine what books are profitable or not?
So you have to know what you're looking for. So if you are going to the wrong sections, in other words, the wrong genres and things like that, you could walk out and make almost no money. So you have to know what you're looking for. But as far as the pricing goes and things like that, that is all in the hands of the software, like the FBA Scan that you mentioned. That's a popular one. That app lets you download everything to your phone. You don't need internet. And that will give you that data on your phone as far as, can I make money on this? Yes or no? And it's really, really accurate. That's a good thing. And there's actually something called triggers you can set. That's something I go into more in the course. But the triggers are something where you can set, now they have profit base. So you can put in your buy cost, and let's say you spend a dollar average on where you're buying from. It'll tell you your actual profit. So you can go based on that. Whereas before it was much more difficult. You had less data to work with. You were going on the merchant prices, as they were called. So now things are a lot more accurate. The triggers, I would say, are about 95% of the way there. Whereas before they were, maybe 80, 85%. You'd have a lot of false positives. So that's one of the improvements from a while ago that has been made.
Yeah, because sometimes I see people at the bookstore scanning and they've got like headphones in and they're not even looking at their actual unit. They're just scanning and they're just like throwing books in their cart. And I've always wondered like what they're doing. So you're saying that they have these triggers that are set up through this software that's, what is it, ringing a noise or something like that, letting them know that it's a profitable book that meets the criteria that's inside the software application?
Right, exactly. So these guys that you're seeing, they're going through the right sections. They know the genres that are profitable. Then they're just scanning barcodes, and they have these headphones in. And every time that something meets their triggers or their criteria, it'll ring, and it'll be like a cash register sound or a beep or anything like that. And they hear it and they know. So they're not even looking at their phone or anything like that. And they throw it in the bag. And the reason they do this, Steve, is because of speed. When you do it with just the audio cues, you can move faster than the next person, which is important when there's competition.
Let's start to talk about some of those triggers, or just essentially like what are some of the things that you look for in a book. Let's talk about maybe minimum profit, sales rank. I'm not sure what other factors you look for, but is there a certain sales rank that you're looking for and or a minimum profit margin that you're looking for when you're out there at the thrift store scanning?
Yeah, there is. Are you able to pull up the sales page of Book Selling 101 or a screenshot maybe of FBA Scan so I can kind of go over it with people visually?
I can see if I can edit something
my screen. After. Is there a way I can share my screen and then like unshare it in the middle of this?
It's gonna. You're throwing me on the spot on this one, man. This is. I don't know how. No,
all right, I won't complicate things. I won't complicate. I'll keep it simple. Go ahead.
We'll just keep it simple, man. So just talk a little bit about the the sales rank and the minimum profit.
Okay, yeah. So sales rank, that's at its most basic form. It's how often something sells. Minimum profit is exactly what it sounds like. For that to function, you have to tell it what you're paying for the book or the product. So you're kind of going on a combination of things. You're going based on the sales rank. You're going based on how much money you'll make when the book sells. And if you have only one without the other, it's very difficult to make a decision. So luckily, the software is advanced enough now where you can, make your triggers and things like that based off of multiple factors instead of just one. As an example, a book that has an 8 million sales rank sells for $14.95 is not that great a buy, whereas a book that sells for $14.95 and has a 100,000 sales rank is a really good buy. So, that's just kind of an example. Kind of the higher the sales rank, the more profit you want to see for it to be worth it to invest into that book or whatever the item is.
Do you still mess with the higher sales ranks with the long-term storage fees and the increased fees
Absolutely.
now with Amazon? Because it really seems like they're trying to, they don't want you essentially. You can just tell they're not looking for sellers to ship stuff off and leave it in there for 6 to 12 months. So, I mean, what do you think about the long-term storage fees? How does that affect you as a bookseller when starting to go after those long tail items?
So the triggers that I use and the settings that I use are built in a way that when I send in a long-term storage fee book, which I would consider, anything 6 months, 12 months or over like that, the profit is so large on that. And I have the statistics that I know that when I'm sitting in those books, I'm always going to be making money. And I won't just be making money. I'll be, like way in the green on those. And so I have those triggers and everything set in that way. I love long tail books. Every day out of the blue, you'll have a $90 sale, and you'll look and you'll be like, oh, that's been in there for 9 months. Like, okay, well, that was in. Much when time passes. Then you look at the long-term storage fees. I think people make a really big deal out of this, but I have a process where I purge my books every 6 months, and it's very, very simple. It's very painless. You just need to have Excel and a little bit of knowledge there. I have a video actually in the course right about that, but you can look that up online too if it's something you just want to look into. And you can purge your books, and the long-term storage fees, maybe I'll get hit for or $2 on a book, but if I'm selling that book for $50, who really cares, right? So that's kind of the way I think about that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think a lot of people get caught up on it. I mean, even too, you see some people, they'll pass up on a book that's selling for $50. It might cost $10, but they're saying to themselves, like, I don't want to pay $10 for a book. Like, that's overpriced, but it's got like an 80,000 rank and it's selling for 50 or $60. So,
Right.
That's kind of on the other side of the coin. But I mean, if there's money there, I mean, it's all about the risk and the reward, right? I mean, are you willing to risk X amount of money for this big reward?
Exactly.
So, I mean, that's my thought process. Now, let me ask you a question. When you walk into a thrift store, or maybe you're hitting a garage sale or wherever, you were talking about, these sellers and the competition knowing the right places to go. Where is the right place to go when you walk into a thrift store and you start looking at the books? Is it the fiction, the nonfiction? Is it the biographies? What's the best place to start?
Typically, nonfiction are always going to sell better than fiction for the most part. You can make money on some fiction titles. The fiction, the ones you want to stay away from are the mass markets. Those are the kind of short, fat books. Those are almost always worth just about nothing. I have found some of the fiction titles from the 50s, 60s, and 70s. They're kind of smaller. Those I've made some pretty good money on. They're a little higher rank, but they're usually always $20, $30 a piece. I've done well with them, particularly because I send FBA. But yeah, I mean, nonfiction is in general going to sell for more. And there's certain categories in nonfiction that have higher success rates. I would say art is one of the best ones. There's other categories too, but art's good, history's good. All types of categories can make you money as long as it's about a subject that is, if it's something someone can learn about and study up on, you could probably make money on it as long as it's not obsolete.
Let me ask you a question. Is it necessary for somebody who's serious about book selling to get one of those Bluetooth handheld scanners? Because, for me right now, I'm just selling books part-time. So I'm actually not even using my Bluetooth scanner. I'm not even using FBA Scan anymore just because I've been just doing it part-time. So I just use the Amazon Seller app. someone's brand new, do they have to, or would you advise them to invest in a, whether it's a $50 or a $200 Bluetooth scanner, one of those little handheld ones with FBA scan 40 a month? Or is it okay to start with the Amazon Seller app? What's your recommendation there?
So it always comes back to how painful do you want the process to be, right? Uh, when you change a tire on your car, do you want the little jack you have to kind of, and you're sitting there for 20 minutes, or do you want the one that the guys, from AAA come and they jack it up and they're done in 60 seconds, right? So that's kind of how I relate to that question. I started out the same way that you're talking about with the phone, the camera on the phone. That works. It certainly works. But for every book you scan on that, someone with the Bluetooth scanner is probably going to scan 10 or more. So that's really kind of how you want to look at that one.
Jim, let me ask you, what's the fastest way, because we're talking about, speed of scanning books, but now let's talk about listing books. You get home, you get ready to ship them off to the FBA warehouses, to be able to list your items and get them off to the warehouses. Any tips for that?
So when you want to list your books and send them off to FBA, you're going to want to use what's called a listing software. There's a lot of different ones on the market. Inventory Lab used to be the one I used to recommend, but there became some issues with that. And that's there were some big issues with that, actually, as opposed to when it comes to speed. So I actually started using a program called Acceleralist. Acceleralist, I actually did a full review on it. If you YouTube Acceleralist review, you'll find my review on that software. I find it is really, really good for listing books in particular, and it's good for listing anything on Amazon FBA. It's very fast, it's very efficient, and it doesn't cost very much. And I think it's like $30 a month, so it's well worth the time you save as opposed to doing it the manual way.
Yeah, because it's a little inefficient. I use Inventory Lab right now. I haven't used the software that you mentioned, but it's so much quicker using a third-party software versus just going right through the Amazon platform. So I would definitely look into Jim's review. I'll definitely be sure to list that down below. Let me ask you, when it comes to grading books, there's a lot of people who get caught up in terms of, is this book poor condition, good condition, very good, like new? What's your thoughts on how to grade books properly, and what do you want to avoid in order to not get in trouble?
Yeah, so I would say the biggest thing to not get in trouble, especially as a new seller, is to lay off selling books under new condition, especially to start. You can get in a lot of trouble that way, particularly because most of the time the book actually isn't new. So I would say as a new seller, if you want to be safe, stick to like new. I would also say be careful with the highlighting, the underlining, issues like that. Obviously, you don't want to list it as like new or anything like that. So I would say if there's any markings or anything like that, that's an automatic good condition, good or worse. So that's the two big things people get in trouble with, particularly listing as new. I find a lot of people get in trouble with that. So I think, especially lately, that's something you want to not do very often.
What if it's missing a CD, like a textbook, if it's missing a CD, or maybe there's a page that's missing? What do you do in that situation?
Yeah, so those are two very different issues. So not having a CD, that's kind of a supplemental thing to the book. If you disclose that rather in the listing, you can get away with that.
Okay.
But that's going to be good condition or worse. As far as missing pages, that's an automatic disqualifier. If a book is missing pages that are deemed necessary to the book being functional, you can't list that book, and you can get in a lot of trouble for that too.
Okay, cool. Hey, who do you think this business is for, and who's this business not for? There's a lot of various business models that you can choose, but is there a type of person that fits best when it comes to selling books, and is there a type of person that just you'd be like, this probably isn't the business for you?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So actually, this business is right for, I would say, more people than it's not right for, but there are some people that it probably wouldn't fit their lifestyle. I'll get into who it's right for first. So some of the very good things about listing FBA and books in particular is that the barrier to entry is very low. You don't need you don't need a high credit score or anything like that. You need a very low startup capital. I'm talking a couple $100, few $100 to get started. which is very low for starting a new business, almost unheard of. And you don't need any loans, you don't need to do anything like that. And another good thing about it is you don't need to have employees, which complicates
Mm.
things a lot. And then you start talking about, you have to incorporate or become an LLC, complicates taxes and things like that. So you don't have to do anything like that. And I would say you could make, easily between 60 and $100,000 a year just as one person, as a sole proprietor doing the business. So I would say those are all the really good things about the business. So people that I would say it wouldn't be good for, you know, selling books, selling Amazon, at the end of the day, you're an entrepreneur. You're selling in someone else's playground, but you're still an entrepreneur. So you have to really be able to motivate yourself. No one's going to tell you you have to work today. You
Mm.
really have to have that in you. And I've met a lot of people that they're just not entrepreneurs. They just don't have it. So, I would say, are you an entrepreneur? I mean, if you're considering doing this and, you are the kind of person that's going to put 100% commitment in, I would say entrepreneurs typically they work mornings, they work nights. They don't necessarily have to work 12-hour day, but there's no limits. The entrepreneurs are the people that will work 60 hours a week to avoid having to work 40 hours a week for someone else, right? So that's kind of how I would, describe that.
Right. No, I definitely agree with that. I mean, this is a business where you're going to have to work hard. You're going to have to adapt. You're going to have to, consistently be going out there and putting effort. But the cool thing about this business as well is once you build up a good inventory, right, in the Amazon FBA warehouse, and considering you're buying books with a market that have a good rank, I mean, you could take your foot off the pedal every now and then, right? You could take off on vacation for a week or two and still drive those sales, right? So, I mean, this isn't
Yes,
like
yes.
100% passive income business, but it's semi-passive because you could put in the hard work at first. If you're buying books that have different ranks, I mean, like you said, you can have a
Yeah.
7 million book rank that pops 6 months down the road, and you're like, wow, this like $80 just came out of nowhere. So, yeah, I definitely agree. Let me ask you, what do you think the biggest mistake is that you see your students making and other people who sell books? What's one mistake where you're just like, you just got to stop it? It's just a common mistake. Booksellers are making it when they're new, and they just really need to avoid it.
Yeah, so I would say the first thing people that buy the program, I would say, if there's people that have issues, it's usually people that don't follow the program, people that are always trying to implement and do things differently than just do what's worked, for someone that's been successful, and then build off of that. And then once they have success, then kind of, make changes down the line. So I would say, as far as people that have bought the course, but the vast majority of people, I would say, don't really do that. I would say the people that have the most issues are generally people that this is the most common thing I see. There's two things I see all the time. The first thing is people give up too fast. They try one or two methods, let's say sourcing, and one method isn't so great in their area. Also talking about how great that method is in their area, and they just shut down, like, oh, this isn't going to work for me. As opposed to really looking at their options and trying something different or trying something that might work really well for them, but not someone in the area that was talking about how great the other thing was. So that's a really big one. And I would say the other thing is next to that would be people simply price their books too high. There's a
Ooh,
lot of
that's a good
talk,
topic.
yeah, on YouTube and other places, people talk about how they price their books, and it's just not realistic. I mean, if you get a sale every so often on a book that's priced 50 times higher than it's supposed to be, doesn't mean that's the right way to price. And you're going to see your inventory stagnate because of it. So that's a big one.
What's your strategy for pricing books? I mean, are you price matching? Are you factoring in a whole bunch of different things? Are you undercutting? Is it a mixture?
Yeah, it's a mixture, but in general, I'm very aggressive. I'm very aggressive with pricing because we're
So you
spending
want
so
them to
little for
move.
these books. Yeah, you want to move. It's not going to do you any good. You're spending $1, maybe $2, sometimes even 10 cents, 20 cents on these books. If you're just going to sit there and price things sky high and expect someone else's, if you're not willing to spend that much, then why would somebody else be willing to? And kind of waiting for that one right person to come along is a big mistake. So I would say pretty aggressive about pricing. And I would say that that has helped me a great deal. And every time someone comes to me and they have a pricing issue, I always ask for a few examples of some of their books, and they are always priced too high. So that is the number one problem I see.
Very, very cool, man. Well, I appreciate you answering all those questions. For the people who are listening on iTunes, you're not going to be able to see what's going on here, so you're going to have to roll over to YouTube and check it out. But on the screen right now, you can actually see we're inside of Jim Pickins' course, Bookselling 101, and you guys can check the link down below, raikenprofit.com/bookselling101 if you'd like to check it out. But there's a lot of videos in here. It looks like in total you have, I think it's over 40 videos that you have in here. There's a lot of different things. So let's start to talk about some of the things that are actually inside of this course. How does this course work? Who's this course for, first of all? Is it for a beginner, intermediate? Is it for someone who's been selling for months? What are your thoughts on that?
So the course is going to work the best for someone that's a complete beginner because they're going to get a ton of value out of every single video. But it's also going to work really well for people that are selling books and they're not doing as well as they think they should be doing. They're not really hitting that 1.5% sell-through rate per day that they really should be seeing and things like that. So the new person is going to get a ton of value out of it. It really assumes no prior knowledge. It assumes absolutely no prior knowledge. And, I constantly update the course. And that's something that's really important because sometimes things become out of date. And I work really hard to make sure that, that doesn't happen with this. So I'm always making updates, and I replace entire videos times as things change.
Do you have a video in here? Because I get a lot of people asking, and I know there's some videos on YouTube about it, but do you have a video walking through how to actually list your items on Amazon and go through that first FBA shipment?
Yes, I do. And actually, I'm in the middle of updating that video, speaking of updates, to one for that listing program I just mentioned before, Accelerlist. So that video goes through the very beginning phase of listing to the end.
That's good.
And it goes between the screen, like the computer screen, and then it actually switches to where I'm recording with my iPhone, actually taping the boxes, putting the labels on, from start to finish. So, yeah, I agree. That's a very, very important video for people to see.
Because I get people sending me private messages all the time and, asking questions about books. And a lot of times I just give them my phone number and I call them because it's so much easier to answer the questions. And I tell you, the number one thing that I see holding people back is they can figure out how to scan books. They can figure out how to analyze it. But going through that process of actually shipping it to the FBA warehouses is just very, very intimidating for people. So I'm glad that you have that here. There's a lot of cool videos in this course. I mean, how to list up to 100 books per hour and listing supplies needed. Looks like that's a 7-minute video. How to grade your books, 17-minute video. I mean, there's a lot of content in here. Judging conditions, how to maintain feedback. I mean, guys, this is literally the ultimate course when it comes to selling books. And what is this price at? Isn't it $97?
Yeah, it's $97.
It's a great deal.
Yeah, I think it's a very fair price for the information that's there. It's basically a blueprint for the beginner or even for the person that's kind of intermediate and they're having some issues. I guarantee you'll find something in the course that'll make it worth the $97. Just to go through kind of some success stories or things like that, or even some things that I've personally experienced. There was one time, and I actually did a YouTube video on this. I got a Craigslist hit. I spent about $500, and they were pop-up books. And I bought over 600 pop-up books for $500. So I went out there, and I just hustled. Me and my girlfriend, we each had our own scanners, and it was a ton of work. We busted our ass, and, we brought all of them back, listed them all, sent them in, made over $4,000 on that one haul. And then actually in the very same week, we actually went to another woman's house. It was in a more upscale neighborhood. Sometimes those are good places to go to because people have generally higher quality books. And we bought actually an old atlas, and I didn't know a ton about it, but I did know how to research things like that. And I actually have a video in here about when to sell on eBay. So I offered her $70 for it, and turns out it was actually a very rare atlas. I ended up selling it for $1,200. So
Wow.
those are just, yeah, those are just some kind of examples, some of the successes I've had. And then as far as a more ongoing thing that you can expect when you do this the right way, of course, library sales. So if you are in an area that has good library sales, I've never made less than $2,000 from going to a library sale. Now, I do go with my girlfriend, so it's always better if you have someone you can bring with you to help source. So keep that in mind. But let's say it was just me, then I would be saying I've never made less than $1,000 going to a book sale because that's one person, right? Still pretty good. $1,000 for a couple hours worth of effort. That's a lot of money, and it's unbelievable to a lot of people that they don't understand the business, but it's possible, and that's the business that we do. And I see you're going through a lot of these videos here. This is the
There's a
pricing
lot of
section.
content here, man. There's a lot of content in this course. It's freaking insane.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And then there's the bonus section. Yeah. So the bonus section here, this is a video. It says garage and estate sale find. So in that video, that was actually me going to tag sales. I mean, it almost seems like such a silly thing, but me and my girlfriend, we would go out, we would wake up 7 in the morning and we would just hit tag sales one after another. We would make a route and we would put it in our phone. We would go to local ones where we just see the signs, and we go to some of the ones that we found on certain websites. And this is just a small haul from a few different tag sales. But that little drum set there, we bought that for $10. I think that was going for 120 on FBA. We got the guitar. You could see they're still in the box. And then you can see a bunch of books there as well and CDs. So we really buy everything. And that's another good thing about the course is it teaches you how to read the sales rank and all these things we were talking about before so that you can sell pretty much anything from that point. You're not just restricted to books. You can really sell whatever you want. And one day doing tag sales, I mean, if you really hustle and go to like 10 tag sales in a day, you can make $1,000, $2,000 even sometimes if you hit the right things. But I would say on a tag sale day, we really put a lot of effort, never made less than $600 to $800 ever. So, all different types of ways to make money with this business model. You really just have to find the one that works the best for you.
Awesome. So yeah, guys, if you're interested in this, definitely check it out. RaikenProfit.com/book selling 101. Be sure to check that out and give it a shot. But super grateful to have you on the show. Let me take the screen share off for me for the people watching on YouTube. Super grateful for you to come on the show. If anyone has any more questions, feel free to drop a line in the comment section. If you're on YouTube, if you're on iTunes, you're going to have to come over to YouTube and drop a comment. But, I'm going to be happy to answer any questions you have. And then maybe we can get Jim in the comments as well to answer any questions you have. Hey, with that course, they get access to a private community as well, right? A Facebook group?
Yes, I'm glad you brought that up. We have a Facebook community. There's a free community you can join if you want to just kind of test the waters or ask questions, things like that. That's called the Book Selling 101 Lounge. And then there's Book Selling 101 Members Group, and that has a lot of different members from the course. You're going to get a lot of good feedback there. A lot of people having a lot of good success there too. So having that community where you can ask a question and get an answer almost immediately has been a huge asset for people that have bought the course. So people have been really happy about having access to that online community.
There's no better time than right now, guys. There's a lot of money out there, whether it's selling books or electronics or video games or whatever you want to sell, clothing. You just got to choose and you just got to get started. That's why I've been, running this Raiken Profit show to introduce you to people, everyday people, just like Jim, who are making money online. And books is a great example. So if you want to start to get a slice of the pie, go out there, right? There's a lot of ways you can learn on your own. You could take a course to speed it up. You could go on YouTube. There's so many ways to learn. But at the end of the day, just get started. Go out there. Start going to these thrift stores, these book sales. and start picking up books and start sending them into Amazon. There's money to be made, and you know, people who are making money, there's nothing special. They're just following a system. They're following a process, and you know, they're getting results. So, Jim, any final words for the people watching? Really, really excited for people to get started.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I would say if you're on the fence, check out my YouTube channel. You know, if you guys want to see if this is real or not, check out some of the videos I have on there. Those are real. Pretty much what I would do is just take videos of live hauls and things that I would do, you know, over the years, and that will show you that pop-up book haul, things like that. You'll see me pulling out book after book, $40, $60, $80, you know, and you'll get to see the journey live, and you know, hopefully that will motivate you even more than this video has to take action.
Cool. So his YouTube channel is Jim Pickins, correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
On YouTube. I'll link that up
The
down below.
blog,
But yeah, I'll link everything up
JimPickins.com.
down below. JimPickins.com, YouTube channel, RaikenProfit.com/bookselling101 if you want to check out his course. All links will be down below. Go out there, make it happen. Appreciate you coming on, Jim. Really grateful for you to be here. And everybody listening on iTunes, thank you so much. If you could do me a big favor, go over there, leave an honest feedback for the podcast. Really appreciate it. Folks on YouTube, hit the like button, comment, subscribe. If you have any questions, drop a question down below. But yeah, with that being said, thanks everybody, and we'll see you in the next video. Thanks, Jim.
Yep. Thanks, Steve.